Did you hear that Xbox bought Bethesda? Yeah, that happened a long time ago, but the real big news is that finally this will they won't they thing that's been going on for, it feels like a year and a half now, where Xbox has been talking about trying to buy Activision Blizzard, sounds like it's gonna go through after all. I mean, when that much money is on the line, did any of us really expect them to not be able to just do whatever they wanted in the first place? Part of me kind of figured that something would come into play, but I should have known better. Anyways, it looks like that's gonna happen, and a big discussion that's happening right now is what should Sony do to retaliate? Who can they buy? Should they buy Square Enix? That seems to be like the really big one that everybody's talking about. And Square Enix, it feels like for a while they've been preparing to become acquired, I think. You know, they sold off Eidos Montreal and a lot of the other IPs that didn't really fit their core of what the company kind of became big and known for back in the day. Squaresoft, Square Enix is mostly a lot of just Square and Enix IPs. I think they still have some other stuff, but they sold off a lot of the big money makers pretty recently to Embracer Group. And now it feels like they've just kind of been preparing themselves to be acquired. Would Sony actually benefit from acquiring Square Enix? I think that's kind of a big question at this point. And honestly, I don't see the benefit. I don't know why people are saying that Sony should, because honestly, in the big console wars up to this point, Square Enix has been producing content almost exclusively for Sony consoles and occasionally Nintendo consoles. Like, as far as exclusives go, it's been going to those two companies. There's not really been an exclusive Microsoft Xbox Series whatever game from Square Enix that I can even recall. If this is a big war between Microsoft and Sony, why would they buy the company that's already doing the things that they would just pay them to do? It sounds like they could use that money better elsewhere, but I mean, there are some benefits to locking that down, and that one of those could be it would prevent Microsoft from buying Square Enix. And then suddenly I'd probably have to start caring about Xbox or PC gaming, at least. Thank God there's no real such thing as an Xbox exclusive. Yeah, everything that I ever wanted to play on Xbox, I'll play on PC. That's my strategy going forward because I just do not care about the Xbox. So that's one aspect, one reason Sony might buy them. So let's go ahead and talk about that. Let me first say that this is not an endorsement of mega corporations playing hungry hippos with development studios. I'm no fan of acquisitions and consolidation of video game culture into a single entity. I think that's going to be bad for everybody in the long run. But if we have lemons, let's try making some lemonade and talking about some of the things, the potentials that this could unlock. Because a lot of us who are fans of the IPs that Square Enix holds haven't been super thrilled with the direction that Square Enix has been going. NFTs, anybody? Maybe this could be an opportunity for Square Enix to put the big ol' emergency brake on that whole NFT thing that the current president is just so gung-ho for. In order for Sony to make it worth their money, I would think they'd want to bring in a lot of the people who made Square Enix successful in the first place. And that will probably involve reviving a lot of the IPs that Square Enix has been kind of reluctant to do anything with. There's a couple of really big games that come to mind, like Chrono Trigger and Xenogears, that I think, personally, I feel in my heart of hearts that Square Enix just doesn't want to touch because of spite toward the creators involved. But under a new Sony leadership, that spite does not matter because they will be owned by the company who's interested in making money, and printing money sometimes can entail re-releases, remasters, and other things that we've been asking for, like Chrono Break, anybody? Could you imagine a world in which Mistwalker was acquired and Square Enix was acquired? Sony putting Hironobu Sakaguchi back at the helm of Final Fantasy. Basically the omnipotent hand of Sony correcting things, righting ships, righting wrongs, and putting people back where they ought to be. That would be pretty interesting. It would make a lot of waves, and I'd probably be interested in whatever Final Fantasy came out of it. That said, pipe dreams like these aren't always the most likely scenario. After all, Obsidian Entertainment still hasn't made us another Fallout game. So this is still just a pie-in-the-sky possibility that I would like to see happen. Other possibilities might include reviving some franchises that have also been long dormant for a long time. How about other beloved games like Vagrant Story, for instance? That would be pretty great. Parasite Eve, the Mana series. There are so many opportunities here for games that Square Enix just let fall to the wayside to become real and available again. Could you imagine Terranigma being available on the eShop or something? Maybe not eShop, because I guess that might be Nintendo. I hope that wouldn't break things. There's also this whole non-video game aspect to this acquisition potential that could have potential reach. Talking about cross-media collaborations between Sony and Square Enix. Imagine a Final Fantasy or Dragon Quest movie that didn't suck and kill the company. I guess you could argue that Spirits Within is kind of what brought Squaresoft into this predicament that they are currently in, but it would be nice to see what they could do with the full might of Sony media behind them. But part of me cries at the prospect of never seeing maybe another Bravely Default game on a Nintendo console, and that's just really sad. That's the problem. More games on more consoles is better for everybody. And in this game of hungry hippos and corporations gobbling up other corporations, basically we, the players, will likely suffer in the long run. Fewer Square Enix games showing up on the Nintendo Switch, well, I know not everybody's a huge fan of the Nintendo Switch, but there's a lot of people who have one who will no longer be able to play Square Enix games. Plus, there's also the possibility of games getting worse than they were before. I mean, look what happened to Squaresoft when they were acquired by Enix. Now just imagine Square Enix gets gobbled up by a bigger, worse version of Enix, and that's probably Sony. And what's gonna happen? A lot of homogeneity within the gaming industry as games just sort of become samey and harder to play because they're only on certain consoles. Long story short, hype responsibly. I always like to envision and hope for the best future, but that doesn't always seem to come to fruition, and I'd really rather just hope with all of my heart and not be let down when things don't really work out for the best. Hype responsibly has been and will always be my motto, along with more games in more places is better for everybody. But that about does it for these rambling thoughts that are just bouncing around inside the old noggin. So I want to know what you guys think about this potential acquisition. Some people really want it, but is that a good thing for the industry as a whole? And what happens if Sony just doesn't play the game? Then Xbox buys these companies, and then suddenly I have to buy an Xbox? Perish the thought. Anyways, I'm SuperDerek. I make thoughtful and thought-provoking videos for gamers who love RPGs, and I will see you in the next one. Have a great day, everyone.